I think she's in his head, and that Brady will snap eventually. The epitome of cool, Tom Brady doesn't care about anything. Nothing rattles the guy. Doesn't matter. You could send a pack of lions after him in the pass rush, and he would still just stand there in the pocket and flick one to Gronkowski, and the guy would take it to the end zone for a touchdown. Epitome of cool. But once a woman's in your head, and you guys out there know this, and it starts to seep into your work or things that you do away from the home, you're finished. You're fucked. I mean, that's as simply as I could put it. So, would it happen even to somebody with the mental strength of a Tom Brady, who's capable of doing this crazy diet, which he looks emaciated, doesn't he?
And he looks like
What
garbage.
happened to this guy? Somebody
took a
throw
day
that
off?
man a sandwich. Yeah. Looks like you're going a PGA tour, this guy. Maybe the live tour at 45. That's, where, when you're in golf purgatory, that's where you go to pick up millions. All right. We welcome to the show. And this is great. We love this guy. And he's the beat writer for the Miami Dolphins here, South Florida Sun-Sentinel, doing a fine job on that. Previously, we got to know him when he was covering the Miami Hurricanes. And I wanted to kind of start there because I'm sure he still is observing the Hurricanes with keen and acute interest, even though very busy, with all this Dolphin stuff. We welcome David Furones to the program. David, how are you, my friend?
Hey, I'm doing well, guys. Getting through week one here. So exciting time, new football season, and two football teams in South Florida that have put together 3 wins so far. Not bad.
All right. Well, before we get into the Dolphins, which we want to go into details since you're on top of that right now, but Jimbo loses to what? Appalachian State goes in there and beats the number 6 team in the country. The Hurricanes, when you looked at their schedule, it was cupcake, and now this. And you thought, well, this will be a litmus test, some kind of a game that we can identify where the program is at right now and possibly even get an indication as to where it might be going. Now Texas A&M doesn't look so formidable, even though they were ranked as high as number 6. I don't know where they ended up this week, but obviously they had to fall significantly. What do you think? I mean, should the Hurricanes, they're underdogs, 5 and a hook in this game. Should they not be favored to go in there and at least be able to do the same kind of things as Appalachian State did? Or are they in the same category as Appalachian State at this stage?
Yeah, conventional wisdom would tell you, okay, and Texas A&M wasn't that good, and actually I think they dropped completely out of the top 25, if I'm not mistaken. Now, if you looked at it as these teams are exactly what we went into the season thinking they were, and then Texas A&M just had a bad outing, and that's what happened against Appalachian State, which does also have a history of being able to knock off these Power 5 conference teams, then okay, maybe you do still look at it the same way. Now, Texas A&M now is going to give Miami their best shot for sure, coming off a loss to a team like App State, and maybe they were looking ahead. Maybe Miami was also looking ahead, kind of in that first half when the noon kickoff at home, when it's hot out, and they didn't get off to a fast start, and then finally did show up by the end of the half, and then going into the second half. But Texas A&M, the way they did it, it ended up costing them the whole game. If that indeed was the case, then looking ahead. So, you figured A&M was going to give Miami the best shot. Miami was going to give A&M the best shot. We know both teams were probably looking at this game as kind of the early litmus test for each one. So it'll still be something exciting and worth watching on Saturday night.
I envision myself at a press conference, Nick Saban after his 1-point win over Texas, and I guess this result wasn't known at the time, but had it been, how great would it have been to ask Nick if he felt any empathy for his friend Jimbo Fisher for losing to a non-Power 5 conference school, as formidable as Appalachian State has been in that category of pulling off upsets. Still, you would have to think that Nick took a special delight. It had to be all he could do to suppress his laughter after he saw that result.
That's right. I didn't even think of that angle of that whole off-season drama between Saban and Jimbo Fisher. But he must have gotten some internal satisfaction out of that. Although Nick Saban would probably never admit that publicly or say it much in a press conference to give that opponent who he has to face later on in the season any type of ammunition. So, but he must have received some kind of.
Can you imagine? Yeah, I mean, it's like taking your arch rival and seeing him fall flat on his face, and it had to be especially delightful for old Nick, even more so than those Affleck checks when they come in for that really bad acting job that he does. All right, let's get into the Miami Dolphins. David Furones, Sun-Sentinel, beat writer for the Miami Dolphins. They pull off a victory. Many people expected it. I thought that they would handle the New England Patriots because I didn't think New England was very good. They managed to look good in spots in the first half offensively, but not overwhelmingly so. We did kind of get an indication of what Mike McDaniel was thinking in terms of how he's going to use these two speedballs there, Waddle and Tyreek Hill. I thought that was very encouraging. And then we saw some real suspect plays by Tua in the second half. The defense keeps him in the game, even had a defensive score. What were some of your impressions? I mean, what were some of the important things, if there were any, to take away from week number one with the Miami Dolphins, aside from the fact that they won the game?
Yeah, I think Mike McDaniel said it best when he said, this is still the defense's team. So as much as there has been all this hype over the revamped offense, this defense that has been kept intact, has remained together through this offseason, that really anchored the team for those 8 wins in the last 9 games. Granted, some of them against a lot of suspect quarterbacks, backup quarterbacks, and overall not great offenses last year. This team still leans on its defense. And you saw it with, they're giving up a little bit of a drive to start the game. Xavier Howard makes the big play one-on-one to tip the ball, and Javon Holland is right there for the interception. No points given up, and you force a turnover. It ends up in 3 points the other way shortly thereafter. Later on, second quarter, you got Brandon Jones coming off untouched on a safety blitz, which they didn't blitz as much as they have last year. They're one of the most aggressive defenses, but used it in spots and used it very effectively in that specific spot. Brandon Jones comes through, strip sack. Mac Jones didn't see him coming, bounces right to Melvin Ingram for a touchdown. You score on defense. Then second half, undrafted rookie corner, Kader Kohu coming through, has one fourth down pass breakup, has another play where he forces a fumble that was just caught by Nelson Aguilar. Jalen Phillips lands on the football. So 3 turnovers. The offense, while sure there were some plays where you saw maybe Tua Tagovailoa short hop a throw. He was overall accurate, but certainly multiple examples of throws where you wondered either what was he thinking or how was he that much off target. So he'll have to get some things corrected. And the running game wasn't everything that you would have hoped for coming in, with Mike McDaniel known for that in his time in San Francisco. But overall, offense was good enough to win the game. They got the ball to Tyreek Hill in space plenty of times. He had 12 targets. He had 8 catches, another rushing attempt. Jalen Waddle had 4 catches. I know Mike McDaniel said he wanted to get him the ball more, wanted to get Mike Gesicki certainly the ball more. He only had 1 catch. And Waddle, of course, had the big fourth down conversion for the touchdown right before half. So overall, offensively good enough to win and didn't turn the ball over, while the defense got those 3 takeaways. When you win 3-0 in the turnover margin, that's usually going to be good enough to win you a football game.
And look, David, we talked with your cohort, your co-Dolphins coverer at Sun-Sentinel, Chris Perkins, last week, and he said very much similar to what McDaniel said and what we saw, that the defense, they brought back everyone and the DC. So obviously the defense is going to be ahead of the offense. It's a brand new offense with a lot of new pieces. So it's going to take them time to get where they think, and a lot of us think they can get. True. But what we saw game 1 was very reminiscent of what we saw the last 2 years. An offense that was clunky, a running game that didn't work, an offensive line that struggled pretty much the entire game, and a quarterback who is known to have good anticipation and be accurate and wasn't anticipating anything. Like, I like Tua, but he looked lost a lot of that game and almost had 2 really stupid turnovers that would have been totally on him. Even at the end, when he threw that ball that was incomplete, they got a first down eventually, but he didn't have to throw it. He had a lane to run and slide. So from what you've seen of Tua and been around with this team, what did you notice of that game, and what do you take from it for Tua the rest of the season?
Certainly, yeah. Tua has a lot to work on and improve on going forward. It was still just week 1. He had a new offense, new offensive line, which had to shuffle a lot throughout the game too. Austin Jackson, right tackle, he went down, and then they put in a backup tackle, Greg Little. Then there was one series where He goes to the sideline before returning later. They put right guard Robert Hunt at right tackle while inserting Robert Jones, and then they had the same thing on the other side with Teron Armstead missing a couple plays. So there was a lot of shuffling. Now, even before there was all the offensive line shuffling, there was still a lot of pressures getting back there, affecting the quarterback. And so ultimately, he got the ball to his receivers in space. He made the big fourth down conversion that resulted in the touchdown that Jalen Waddle took after the catch with the run. You get the ball to Tyreek Hill in space, and he's going to make you look good. So at the end of the day, then he did that, and there was one play where Tyreek Hill saved him from what could have easily been an interception. There was a couple of other plays where the Patriots probably saved him from not being opportunistic at opportunities that Tua gave them to force the takeaway. But at the end of the day, he didn't turn the ball over, and the Dolphins were indeed up 3-0 in that battle, and ended up winning the game. So yeah, ultimately it was good enough to win, but still left a lot to be desired from Tua Tagovailoa.
David Furones, the beat writer for the South Florida Sun-Sentinel, with us here on the Defo Show. Jeff DeForest and Mike Lubie. You might be too young to remember Robert Stack, the actor Robert Stack, as the host of Unsolved Mysteries. Yeah, I mean, it's probably still around, David. But anyway, he used to come out of like a tunnel of smoke there as he was introducing the show. And I keep envisioning Stack coming out with the Miami Dolphins as they introduced their offense and asking a question: what happened to Mike Gesicki? How did he fall into disfavor? This guy. I mean, last year it looked like, maybe we had something there at the tight end position. I don't know if he was Kelsey or any of these other monsters, but looked like he would be somebody that you could count on to be a catalyst on the offense. What happened there? I mean, does he even sniff the field anymore? Where's Mike Gesicki?
Well, the thing about Mike Gesicki is while he is listed as a tight end, he rarely actually played the tight end position in the previous offense. He was most often lined up out wide, either in the slot or all the way on the boundary as a wide receiver, actually. So it was really kind of a big wide receiver and a tight end who really does not get active in the run blocking game at all. He's just not known for that. He can go up and make contested catches as a possession receiver, and run routes, but not really a traditional inline blocking tight end. So now in this new offense that Mike McDaniel brought over from the San Francisco 49ers and new tight ends coach John Embry, he also came over from San Francisco with McDaniel. They need the tight end to be able to do both things. They need the tight end to make catches and also be active in the run blocking and this wide zone rushing scheme where so often a lot of the runs are going to go to the edge, and the tight end is pivotal for that. And they had George Kittle all those years in San Francisco. So Mike Gesicki in that regard is no George Kittle. So he's even described it as a new position for himself. The way he's described it through the preseason when he got extended playing time, which was surprising for a franchise tag player to play as much as he did in the preseason. And then now, surprising to see him play as little as he did in week 1 of the regular season. He played 25 snaps, which amounts to, I believe, 40-something or 30, or even below 40% of the offensive snaps in that game. So Mike McDaniel did say yesterday when I asked that he was surprised by the final results of his playing time and his targeting, which was just one target for one reception for 1 yard. That he expected to get him more involved in the passing game, and then kind of the flow of the game went in a different direction, and they were getting the ball to Tyreek Hill a lot. He said he also wanted to get the ball to Jalen Waddle more often and Raheem Mostert in the run game. Now, this offense does have a lot of weapons, as we mentioned all those guys, and you have Chase Edmonds and Cedric Wilson in the slot. So now there are more people to contend with for these targets. And week 1, it just turned out it wasn't heavily for Mike Gesicki, but Mike McDaniel did say he went in with a game plan that intended to get him the ball more. It just didn't work out that way week 1. So we'll see how that progresses going forward, if indeed he does become more active in the offense going forward.
So It was McDaniel's first game, and there was a lot of expectations, a lot of questions about him because he was going. We joked last week, if you were doing coaching, they do the checklist: quarterback, running back, receiver, defense. If you were doing that coaching, you'd give 4 checks to Belichick versus a guy who's brand new and young. It seems like he hung in there. As questionable as I got as a fan, when you looked at the whole of the game, the game was never really at risk for a guy that's in his first game. What did you take away from that game for McDaniel as his first game going up against Bill Belichick?
Certainly, I think the moment wasn't too big for him. I think he stepped up to the challenge. He wasn't overwhelmed by thinking, oh boy, this is Bill Belichick, who was third on the all-time wins list, on the other side, who has 6 Super Bowl rings, and I'm just a little old me in my first time leading a team as a head coach. He went and he took it. And it was exhibited with his decision that Tyreek Hill said he needed a wheelbarrow for his nether regions after that 4th down conversion to Jalen Waddle that resulted in a touchdown 18 seconds before halftime. And that essentially put the game away. It was 17-0 at that point. And the way the Patriots were looking, especially offensively against the Miami defense, you didn't picture the Patriots coming up with 17 points and a half. Turned out it was actually over once the Dolphins got to 10 because the Patriots ended up with 7 points on the game. So really, yeah, like you said, the game was never really in danger that much. So I do want to see Mike McDaniel get into the first time where he does have to make late game decisions on his own, which he's had so many mental reps of, that which he's always made a point to speak of, that he has taken so many mental reps in all his years as an assistant to prepare himself for such moments. But yeah, it'll be interesting once you get to games like Baltimore, Buffalo, Cincinnati that are coming up. These are all going to be very challenging games to win. If they're coming down to the end, I want to see him make some key decisions late under pressure, and that'll be a real test and telling as well. So, which I do expect he'll be prepared for.
Well, he couldn't bungle it any worse than this Denver coach did last night against Seattle. I don't know if you saw that, but for a 64-yard field goal attempt, holy Tom Dempsey, as opposed to having your $250 million quarterback try and complete a 3-yard play. I mean, that seemed ludicrous.
And
let the clock run all the way down, yeah.
Yeah, you could have gotten a stop because you had 3 timeouts if you didn't end up
imagine
converting the 4th down. But right. So then you throw that away, and then you put it all on one play, and then instead of your quarterback, you go for a 64-yard field goal, and we saw the result.
Why don't we try to establish a new NFL record while we're at it here and have this guy do something that's never been done before? I guess the record is slightly longer, right? But, it still seemed like a real bozoic move there, right? When you have, you're moving the ball on those dink passes the entire game. So McDaniel really wasn't pressured to make a lot of really difficult decisions, or so it seemed. And yet, as you said, he more than held his own in the matchup there, coaching matchup with Bill Belichick. Belichick probably didn't have as good of a roster as the Miami Dolphins, and the Dolphins had the home field in that game. What I thought I saw, maybe I'm reading too much into this, it seems like the players not only generally like Mike McDaniel, but they have already developed a little bit of affection for him. I don't know, do you see, if you would see Brian Flores get doused or Adam Gase get doused with a kaleidoscope of Gatorade colors and just kind of, be, sort of in symmetry with his players in terms of their feelings about the game and their happiness for him winning his first game. Do you sense that maybe he does have a little bit of a different bond working so far with the players? Now, that may change if they lose 5 in a row, like you said, but it seems like for right now, I mean, what he's doing is working.
Certainly, yeah. He definitely has a different vibe, and I wouldn't picture any players coming near tossing some Gatorade on Brian Flores. Maybe we'll have to look back. I don't know. Did that ever happen in that 2019 first win, which took?
I would say no. Yeah.
I don't believe that did happen.
He might have cut somebody for doing that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, honestly, well, yeah, especially on that roster.
Yeah,
we're bringing in new guys every Tuesday and then starting them on
sure.
Sunday.
Exactly.
So, yeah. I definitely don't see players being as comfortable doing that with a lot of other coaches. So Mike McDaniel's predecessor included in Brian Flores, and especially some of the like Tyreek Hill being as comfortable saying everything he says in the media or on his podcast. And I feel like some of that probably wouldn't fly. A lot of that wouldn't fly if Brian Flores was still coaching this team. The disciplinarian that he is, and the way he wants, he probably view it as distractions and try to limit it as much as possible. And and Tyreek Hill in that regard, he actually put his podcast on pause to focus on the season. So his head is in the right place anyway. But yeah, you totally see how comfortable these players are being themselves. That was one thing that when Tyreek Hill even came here initially, his first press conference, he said his first interaction with Mike McDaniel was him telling him just be you. I want you to just be you. And Tyreek has certainly done that pretty much every time there's a mic in front of him, and he's spoken to the media.
Oh, very exciting player. Brian Flores at a press conference, or from a press conference standpoint, made Randy Shannon, the old UM coach, look like Rex Ryan. I mean, it wasn't fun to be around this guy, and I can understand why, because he was feeling all of that heat from Stephen Ross telling him, "You better lose every game, kid, or you're not going to last long." With this franchise. All right, we see where it's quite possible that the Jets really do stink again. I know they had Joe Flacco in there for Zach Wilson, so that didn't help them any. But nonetheless, they get handled by the Baltimore Ravens in week number 1. We saw the Patriots really not offer up much. Plus, Mac Jones may have an injury problem with a back injury, and that's not going to be anything that helps them in future weeks, if not this week. And the Buffalo Bills look great. So where does that leave the Miami Dolphins? I mean, what are they playing for in the AFC East?
Yeah, and I wondered about that Mac Jones injury. It was kind of curious to me because he played the whole game. Now, I know sometimes there are injuries where adrenaline gets you through the game and then it affects you in the week of practice and you're questionable going forward, whatever the case may be. But I found it curious that he was able to play a whole football game, and then that his back injury was the reason why he couldn't speak to reporters. It just seems curious to me. Yeah. But especially after a game where they lost like that, and the offense didn't do much of anything. In the AFC East, it's still Buffalo's division. The Buffalo just appears to be leaps and bounds ahead of you could almost say every team in the NFL, and they are the Super Bowl favorites for a reason. So, and we saw that on Thursday Night Football to open the season against the Rams, and the Super Bowl champs, and they really laid it on them. So the way I look at this season is, all right, so Buffalo's going to take the division. Go ahead, that's fine. Earn one of these wild card spots as an AFC, in a very competitive AFC. There's a lot of teams that will be vying for those. Win some of these games against your conference opponents that are also contending for it. If you can get to something like a 10-7 around there, that's actually the season prediction that I had in the Sun-Sentinel for the Dolphins record, then I think that'll get you in, because a lot of other teams are going to be beating each other up, even though there are so many good teams in the AFC. It's not like they can all go for 11 wins, 12 wins. They have to lose some to one another. So I feel like that would get you one of those 3 wildcard spots, and you see where it goes from there, depending on the matchup. If you don't have to face a really good team in a cold environment, maybe the Dolphins could finally get a playoff win for the first time since 2000. But I think,
I got shivers.
Very realistically, though, very realistically, a playoff appearance for the first time since 2016. But it's looking like it would be in a wild card spot, not winning the division and having home field in the first round and whatnot. And of course, a lot was made about Dolphins and Patriots for second in the division. It was good for the Dolphins. They really needed to win this home game early in the year when the heat and humidity is in their favor at Hard Rock Stadium, because you still do have to face the Patriots on New Year's Day in Foxborough, and those will be some frigid temperatures, and they still have to play at Buffalo in December, and that's going to be some conditions there. So really important to get this first win, and then especially out of this first 4-game stretch where you have the Ravens next, Buffalo, Cincinnati on a short week with travel. So this was almost as much of a must-win as there can be week one, and the Dolphins did handle it.
And you always favor the Dolphins in a schwitz fest. I mean, if it's going to be schwitzy out there, the Dolphins are going to be good. And as you said, those are some treacherous games looming on the schedule with the Patriots and the Buffalo Bills in December and January. David, always a pleasure. Enjoying your coverage in the Sun-Sentinel. Always appreciate you coming on the show. Now, were you involved in this podcast thing the Sun-Sentinel's doing with Perk? Did I hear something along those lines? Oh, very nice. Now, how can people catch that?
Yeah, Dolphins Deep Dive with Perk. That's the new, so Chris Perkins, of course, now our Dolphins columnist that you've had on, with Omar Kelly moving on. So X's and Omar exits, enter Dolphins Deep Dive with Perk. So I'll be on with them sometimes. Our initial episode last week, we had both myself and columnist Dave Hyde.
Nice.
Wow.
So we'll
All-star cast.
with So yeah, a big debut with all three of us on there, and then we'll kind of alternate with between myself and Dave Hyde on who's with Perk hosting it. He'll have some other guests as well, just from around football to talk to Dolphins, not necessarily from the Dolphins, but just anyone who has some insight that they can share. So it's an exciting podcast. I'll be on later today. So you can catch that at sunsentinel.com.
Nice.
All right. Sounds great. Always a pleasure, my friend. Great stuff as always. We thank you so much for taking time to get up with us, and we'll talk again real soon, I hope.
Sounds good, guys. Thanks.
All right,
Anytime.
appreciate it, David.
All right. David Furones.